the founding member of the Florida Citizens for Science. This is a nonprofit that helps the state of Florida develop and maintain high education standards in science. Brandon actually wrote the book on the history of creationism versus evolution conflict here in Florida. It's called Going Ape, and like every good author, did you bring some? And he's got some with him. Oh, yay! So you can get his signature today too. He's a public high school teacher in Volusia County, finishing his 5th year in teaching, I believe. In 2008, he was awarded the Friend of Darwin Award by the National Center for Science Education. And we're lucky to have Brandon back today to talk about the current legislative session in Tallahassee. So please help me welcome Brandon.
Guys, I have no idea why you keep on inviting me back. I always have bad news. And then we go to the bar, we kill our livers, it's a cycle. We gotta break this somehow. Oh. Well, I'm in Daytona Beach, and man, I-4. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a car wreck that blocked all lanes. Traffic was backed up for many, many miles. The police were out there keeping us from getting us off the interstate, so we had to go along, a route around the accident, and that was hell because everyone trying to switch lanes, trying to get to the advantage, trying to get to the pole position and everything. It was exciting getting here. Let's just put it that way. All right, so I'm pumped and ready to talk to you about science. I have a variety of subjects I want to talk about. I want to talk about our science standards. I want to talk about what happened in our state legislature this past session. I want to talk about a very serious concern, the shortage of science teachers that we have. I want to talk to you a little bit about vouchers, which I hope all of you are at least familiar with. If not, I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then I'll throw in a couple little things at the end there. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with this thing called standards. Here in the state of Florida, these standards dictate what needs to be taught in every single subject, in every single school, public school, in the state of Florida. The objective of that is that if you're living in Brevard County and you decide, I'm going to move to Volusia County, you're moving your children with you, they should be learning the same thing when they move to Volusia County. This is also obviously tied into all of our state testing. If it's in the standards, you can expect it to be on that great big high stakes testing at the end of the school year. So, if you're a teacher, you need to pay attention to the standards and you need to teach the standards. Okay. Now, here's the deal. This guy, he shook things up as soon as he took office, our new governor, Governor DeSantis. He says, I want all of our state educational standards to be overhauled. His main target was something called Common Core. Common Core standards are mainly math and English language arts standards, developed on a national level and adopted by several states across the country. But a lot of people, for some reason or another, don't like Common Core, believing it's kind of a federal takeover of what is the responsibility of the state. They also blame the way that Common Core math is being taught, that when a kid comes home with some homework and the parents can't help the kid because the parent can't understand this Common Core math stuff. So with all these complaints bubbling up, it's been going on for many, many years, ever since we adopted the Common Core. Now we have a governor who took office and says, I'm going to get rid of Common Core. But that's not all he said. This was his executive order, saying that he wants to revise the standards. Now, if you happen to read the news around the time period he put out this executive order, every single headline says governor is getting rid of Common Core. They didn't mention anything else. But the problem is, he wants to change all of the standards. Common Core is math and English language arts. But let's zoom in on his thing here. It says, by January 1st, 2020, the Commissioner of Education shall comprehensively review Florida's kindergarten through grade 12 academic standards and provide recommended revisions to the governor. All standards, not just math, not just language arts. That includes science standards. Now, if there's any question about that, well, wait a minute, all the news stories have been about Common Core. Maybe he just wants to do Common Core. Okay, okay. But if we get on here, identify opportunities to equip high school graduates with sufficient knowledge of America's civics. So he's pointed out, and it was mentioned in many of the news stories, that civics was a topic. That's not English language arts, that's not math. So clearly, we can take this sentence and extrapolate from there to say he wants all standards reviewed. That's not going to be a problem, is it? Anybody around back in 2008? When we approved our new state science standards? In the interest of science, someone should rigorously test and study how merely mentioning the E word causes some board members to devolve. This was a huge deal. This is why we started Florida Citizens for Science many years ago. We knew that we were going to be revising our state science standards, and we knew it was going to be a big deal, and we were right. It caused a firestorm across the state. There were public hearings held across the state where hundreds of people showed up. Do you know what's in the science standards? Science. Everything. Lab safety. Gravity. The orbit of the Earth. Everything you can think of. And the one thing everyone talked about at every one of these meetings that took hours and hours was evolution, 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 evolution. You got tired of hearing it. But it dominated the conversation, it dominated the Board of Education meeting where they finally made a vote about it, which squeaked by one vote. But we were there, we helped tamp things down, it was awesome. We made a difference. Now the governor says, let's revise the standards. Now he's concentrating on Common Core. The science standards ate up everyone's time for a year or more. That's just one set of standards. One. What's going to happen when we mix in all of the standards in 1 year? It's going to be insanity. Now, if you were to want to participate in this process, you want to have your voice heard, you want to say, hey, I want to stand up for the science standards, you can't. Because everything there's two websites that are about the standards, the governor's order to change the standards. We have the Florida Department of Education website, which is this one right here, Standards Review, and which you can read all sorts of documents, see some PowerPoint presentations, all this stuff about how they're going to change the standards. And another website, this one right here, Florida Standards Review, done by some company called EdCredible, and which you can go ahead and sign in and leave some comments about what changes you would like to see made to the standards. The thing is, it's nothing but Common Core. You log into here, and it will say, okay, we want you to compare the English language arts standards one by one and tell us what you like and don't like about them. Science, civics, none of that is in there. But the governor's order said all standards. We're almost halfway through the year. The recommendation is supposed to be made by January 1st of 2020. I'm scared, and you should be too. If they are going to look at all the standards, and they're not saying anything about science yet, that's a problem, because of our experiences back in 2007, 2008. Are they going to try to sneak something in on us? I do not know. I'm asking for you to pay attention. I'm asking for you to bookmark these websites. Go ahead and take a picture right now if you want to, so you can remember what these links are. And I need you, every now and then, not every day, but if all of us think to look, that will probably cover the rest of the year. Every now and then, you look about once a month, maybe once a week, whatever. Let me check and see if there's anything news happening, because it's not always going to make the news. There might be an announcement on this website right here that kind of slips under everyone's radar because no one's paying attention. Let's make sure we're paying attention. Will you help me with that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's one thing down. Let's move on. Let's take a little step back into history and talk about some of my favorite lawmakers. Senator Dennis Baxley and Representative Kennedy Daniels. I want to start with this, which is not this legislative session. It was a prior legislative session. They teamed up and they passed a bill that is now law, that outlaws religious discrimination in our schools. I'm okay with that, except for the way they phrased everything. There's two main parts of this new law that are concerning to me. One part, it says you cannot discriminate against anyone's religious beliefs, whether they be a student, a teacher, administrator, or so on in the school system. So I'm scratching my head. Okay, what's wrong with this? Ah, the science teacher who believes in creationism. That's my religious view. You cannot discriminate against me. That's the principal saying, oh, I don't like this evolution thing. I don't want you guys to be teaching this thing. Oh, it's in the standards. Well, I want you to do this. I want you to do... Okay? That can potentially open a can of worms. That's one part. The other part is you cannot discriminate against any student who has a religious expression in their schoolwork. Now, if they want to say that my role model in life is Jesus, and that's part of their English language arts assignment, okay, fine, as long as they're on the topic that the teacher's talking about, okay. But what happens when they take a test on evolution? What happens if they have to do some type of written work on evolution? And they get it wrong because they are saying that I think creationism, not evolution. Would this law discriminate against me, the teacher, trying to teach them evolution? Because if I go back and I go ahead and mark that answer wrong and say, come see me, or no, this isn't how it's supposed to be, and they say, you're discriminating against me, Mr. Haught, that could be a problem. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up is because it's now law. This is passed, okay? So, in a past legislative session, Senator Baxley was back again. This time, he had a bill, a proposed bill, in which he says, you know what, this whole standards thing, what if we let every single school district across our states pick their own standards? You know what? We don't want to set the bar down here, which is where, as he says, is where our standards currently are. Let's allow school districts to up the standards. There can be nothing wrong with that. Upping the standards, raising the bar. So he says, he proposed in this bill that every school district can go ahead and choose their own standards, provided they are as rigorous or more rigorous than the state standards. But he left something out, a definition of rigorous. Who decides that? Okay, so that's a problem. But then came the big problem for us, Florida Citizens for Science. Okay? If you decide to do what he says, go ahead and make your own standards for your own county, it would have been a requirement by law that in the science standards, controversial theories and concepts must be taught in a factual, objective, and balanced manner. Who knows what controversial theories are? Mm-hmm. Evolution and climate change, of course. Remember, this is but science. It specifically says, there's a paragraph in there that says, if you do this thing right here, then your science standards have to include this. And that would have been law. Wiping my brow right now because this bill went nowhere. Never got a hearing. He filed it in the Senate. On the House, they did not file a companion bill, which kind of shoots it down almost from the beginning. Never got a hearing, never went anywhere. Thank you. But remember, the last session, he got a bill through, and it's now law about the religious liberties thing. He has a history of not liking evolution. He's on the record. He was the executive director of the Christian Coalition of Florida for some time. He's on the record. Raise your hands. Who thinks he's going to be back next year with another controversial theorist coming through? See, I told you, bad news all the time. That's all I ever bring you guys. Why did you invite me? Okay, so that's one of the bills that Florida Citizens for Science was tracking. Instructional Materials Law. Once again, let's take one step back into history. We've been having a huge problem with textbooks. Or, to broaden it, instructional materials. Doesn't have to be a textbook. It could be anything that I, as a teacher, use in my classroom, a video that I show, a handout that I give them, some little pamphlet I give them to read, whatever the case is, instructional materials. There's a group over in Collier County on the west side of the state, it's called Florida Citizens Alliance, that doesn't like the instructional materials used in their school system. They spent years banging their head against the school district there, getting nowhere, and they finally got tired of it. They made some friends with some lawmakers, and now they have the ear of some lawmakers in Tallahassee. They've been successful for the past couple years in passing laws about instructional materials. The latest iteration says that you, any citizen, you don't even have to have a kid in school, any citizen can go before the school board and say, I don't like what's in these books. That then triggers an immediate hearing an official hearing. They had to appoint a hearing officer. They had to schedule the hearing. You come forward and bring your evidence. The school district comes forward and brings their evidence. And then what's supposed to happen is that that mediator, that district hearing officer, is supposed to then make a kind of a little decision, recommendation to the school board, but the school board still has the final say. But the bottom line is, in the past, if I was some, let's just be honest, some nutcase who came forward and says, I don't like what's in that textbook, they would have said, oh, thank you so much for your information. We're so happy to hear it. Thank you so much. We'll take it under consideration. Okay, file its way somewhere. But now, it doesn't matter who. Anybody come forward. I don't like what's in that textbook. It triggers this hearing process. And it's been a real big deal because I attended a couple of these hearings. In these counties that you see down here. And they were very contentious hearings, hours long. Ooh, my butt was tired at the end of all of these meetings, let me tell you. I got up and I spoke at a couple, it was a real big deal. We barely spent, now the good news is that science textbooks were approved without a whole bunch of meddling on all these cases, but in every case it was by one vote. One single vote. Really tough stuff going on there. But we are now past the science textbook adoption. We got several years until the next round comes up, so it should be okay. We should be okay. Except, okay, in our state legislature, what happened was that because the Florida Citizens Alliance failed in every one of these cases, they didn't like how these school districts ran these hearings. They hated it. They said, you're not following the letter of the law that lawmakers had laid out. Notice what I did there? The Florida Citizens Alliance actually wrote these laws and gave them to the lawmakers to promote. So what they did is they proposed this new law proposed by Representative Hill. Real quick thing about Representative Hill. So I teach environmental science. So I teach climate change, global warming. And so there's this one video that I love to use. It's Bill Nye, Global Meltdown, done by National Geographic. And it has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. It's a really good video. It shows all different sides of the complaint. Bill Nye sat down with him. Interviewed him in this video. He is a climate change denier. Okay? He's one of our lawmakers, and he's holding hands with the Florida Citizens Alliance, going along with the things that they say. So anyway, so the Florida Citizens Alliance gave him this bill, says we would like to see this become law, and it was a monster. It was thick. It was a huge, huge bill. Nitpicking everything the Alliance thought was wrong with the instructional materials hearings that we had. And it had to do with pornography. It had to do with who can appoint the hearing officer, who the hearing officer could be. The school board members could not be present at the hearing. Oh my gosh, it was insane how long that bill was. All the changes they wanted to make. So, they went ahead and they proposed it, and did get a hearing. The bill was stripped down quite a bit. The Florida Citizens Alliance was really unhappy about it. They already had a whole bunch of amendments ready to go for the next time I got a hearing. And then it died. Yes. But the bad news is the Alliance is not going away. They've had a string of successes. It seems like every year for 3 or 4 years they proposed a bill, it got passed into law, and we had to deal with it. This was, I think, their first failure. It wasn't for not trying. So we got to keep an eye on them next legislative session. And I'm not done. Okay, let's move away from the whole evolution creationism thing and talk about graduating people out of high school. I think that once you graduate high school, you should know a little bit about science, how science works, what the scientific process is. You are going to be citizens. You're going to be voting. You're going to be making decisions about vaccines. You're going to be making decisions about global warming and climate change and stuff like that. Plastic pollution, our algal blooms on our waterways here in Florida, all these things. It'd be helpful to have a good solid science foundation. So this bill was proposed in which this gentleman says, you know what, those advanced science and math courses, they're keeping many of our students from graduating, they're making it too tough on them. Let's go ahead and make these kids career ready. Let's let them replace some of those math and science credits with some industry certification instead, so that they could potentially graduate high school having taken one science course. Pausing for dramatic effect. And that one science course is the state-managed biology course. So they could have gotten out with no earth space science, no environmental science, no physics, no chemistry. They could have got out with one single biology course. I fought this like the dickens. I wrote a couple of letters, op-eds, got published in a couple of newspapers. I mean, I was on this thing. And fortunately, this I went through the sausage-making process of the legislature. Finally got pared down to where science was left alone, but I have to tell you, it is now law that you can get out by taking just Algebra 1 in math. You can take Algebra 1A and 1B, my high school has that. For the students who just can't quite grasp algebra, they'll slow it down for you. So you now have 2 classes you can take that are still algebra. But according to this new law, not a bill, a new law, that's sufficient to get you out of high school for math. That's bad news, ladies and gentlemen, very bad news. We're closing doors on these kids. We are closing future doors on these kids. All right. Let's go ahead and really depress you. Let's move away from the legislature and talk about what's happening in our classrooms. We're missing teachers. Boy, we're missing a lot of them. So in my hallway, catty corner to me, in one of the other science classrooms, is a permanent substitute. You walk into this room, it's like you're in prison. It's just brick walls. He has nothing hanging on the walls. He has no little displays. He has nothing. Okay, he's a permanent substitute, teaching our kids science. I don't know the quality of his instruction. I just know there's nothing on his walls. Can you imagine being a student walking into this cinder block? Anyway. Okay, so right here, critical shortage of science math teachers continues. The numbers are depressing. Okay, the teacher union, the state teacher union, predicts that we will have 10,000 shortages by the beginning of the next school year. Those are teachers not in the classroom. Substitutes teaching in the classroom. Now let me tell you about my school. Does anybody recognize these characters? Harry Potter. Okay. What do all these teachers have in common? What subject did they teach?
Defense against the dark arts.
Physics is the defense against the dark arts in my school.
Nice.
I've been teaching there for 5 years. We've had 4 different teachers. 1 year, we did not offer physics because they couldn't find a teacher. Could you imagine? You're wanting to go on to college and your high school doesn't offer physics. That's insanity. And it's only going to get worse. One measure of how we're doing in recruiting new science teachers, you have to take a certification test. Okay, I took a biology certification test and passed it so I can be certified to teach biology. So, I need to credit Paul Cottle, a physics professor at FSU, who has been just slamming this home. He's saying we are doing our students such a horrible disservice because we're not recruiting good science and math teachers. Look at this right here, this blue line. This shows the number of people taking the chemistry certification exam. Look how it has plummeted over the years. It's going down, the number of people taking that exam to become chemistry teachers, to become earth space teachers, to become physics teachers. Do you see the trend? It's going down. To become math teachers. Look at that steep decline. The shortage we're experiencing is going to get worse. What has our state legislature done about it? Do you hear crickets? That's what I hear, crickets. As a matter of fact, there is, or I should say, there was a signing bonus that schools could use to recruit teachers. It was $7,000. A new law was passed. It's now $4,000. But I'm not going to cry, because the $7,000 wasn't working. So they reduced it to $4,000, and let's see how that works.
And throw in a handgun.
They're never going to invite me back again. Okay. So that's teacher shortages. What can we do about it? We have to have our policymakers do something about it. They've got to put meaningful reform into this issue that we're having here, both math and science. And they're just unwilling to do so. I wonder why. Could it be private school vouchers? Could it be they don't care about public education? Just nod your head like this, yes. Okay, so vouchers. Just past legislative session, they have now opened the doors to a new Florida Supreme Court challenge. It will go to the courts, it's a guarantee. Okay, so you can take public money, take it to a private school that teaches creationism. That's vouchers. But the way they've been doing it is kind of under the table. It's called tax credits. That's one of the programs, tax credits. To where companies, instead of paying taxes to the state, can go ahead and donate to this voucher program. Hey, it's not tax money. No, yes it is. And then you can go ahead and apply for those grants that you can use as a voucher to go to a school of your choice. This year, they've opened it up. They're now taking it. They're not going to go home and go that roundabout way. They're not taking a scenic route. They're going directly. They say we can take it directly from the state budget. Way back when vouchers were first proposed by our Governor Bush, it was challenged in court, and one of his voucher programs was sunk, was killed because we were taking public money and putting it into private, oftentimes religious schools. So now they're going to do it again. Because Governor DeSantis just appointed a couple of conservative judges to the Florida Supreme Court, and they're ready for a fight. They want to take it to court. So they passed this law. And now it's just a matter of time ticking away a little bit until someone challenges it and starts going through the court system. I'm scared. And I hope you are too. The Orlando Sentinel did an entire series. They interviewed me for part of it. Schools Without Rules, saying how bad these I can't broad brush it. I have no doubt that there are good private schools. Okay, so don't get me wrong. But boy, there's a whole lot more worse, bad private schools. They went ahead and asked me, as part of this series here, to review a bunch of these science textbooks that are used in private schools, and they are horrible. Let me show you what they use as a science illustration. Are you ready? You've probably seen this before.
Oh, good.
This was in one of their textbooks. I'm not lying to you. This is not a Google search here. It came from one of the textbooks I reviewed for this news article. Humans Living with Dinosaurs. Our public money goes to that. And it doesn't go to hiring, recruiting new science and math teachers in our public schools.
There was no caption.
I'm sorry. I don't remember if there was a caption with it or not. My apologies. I don't remember. Ooh, okay. Blood pressure down. Here we go. Okay, moving on. And now we're just going to cut kind of a hodgepodge of things. Now, I told you about that no religious discrimination bill that was passed and that is now law. Now, we haven't heard much about it since it became law, mainly because I really doubt anyone knows about it. I mean, sincerely, I doubt very many people know about it. And nothing has risen to the level of some reporter finding out about it. There could be something going on about some kid being denied religious liberty, I don't know. But so far we haven't heard anything. Now, once again, Representative Daniels, this year proposed a mandate. She would mandate that schools have to offer an elective in the Bible. Now, it is an elective, but she would mandate that every school offer it. That bill went nowhere this year, but I guarantee it's going to be back because of this thing right here, Project Blitz. It's a national Christian effort to do this stuff right here. Okay, promote Christianity in public schools, recognize America as an officially Christian nation, weaponize religious freedom to harm others, obliterate the wall between separation of religion and government. That's the direction that they're heading with this. In God we trust. There's now a law that schools have to display that somewhere. Several schools have heard complaints from their teachers and administration, and they've gone with putting the state logo because it has "In God We Trust" on it, instead of something just in God we trust on it. Guns in schools. I know I'm straying way off topic from science. I'm just going to state, just for the record, I served in the United States Marine Corps. I worked for 12 years for the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. I am now a public school teacher. This is my 5th year. This is stupid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. I don't want to show you the next slide. I don't want to talk about this, but I have to. Florida Citizens for Science was founded in 2006. I was there for it. Pete, wait, hi Pete. He was there for it. Ladies and gentlemen, that was awesome. We got together a core group of people who all strongly believed in defending science education here in the state of Florida. We got things done. We got contacts within the Department of Education. We had contacts in universities across the state. We pulled together these amazing speakers to go stand before the Board of Education from a wide variety of representative groups. We were kind of the umbrella organization pulling all this together. It was awesome. It was pure awesome. So, we got together, we crafted some bylaws, we became a 501c3 nonprofit institution. Awesome. First 4 years, awesome. We had a clear and present danger to fight against that galvanized people and brought them out, and we kicked some butt. The second 4 years, things slowed down. There still was some stupid bill proposed in the legislature. There was little fires popped up around the state right here and there, but there wasn't like a clear and present danger that brought everyone together. And so we, as Florida Citizens for Science, we still stuck together. We still had our meetings. We still did an awesome job with what we had. Now we're in the third 4 years. We've been around for about 12 years now, and we're falling apart. We don't have a president. We don't have a vice president. We don't have about half of our board of directors. Many of them, remember, it's been 12 years now. Many of them have just simply said, I've been doing it long enough, I'm going to leave. And I don't blame a single one of them. It's hard work. It's all volunteer, 100% volunteer. You're just doing it on your own time, your own effort. A lot of people are tired. And they decided, peace out. That's cool. But our problem in Florida Citizens for Science is we had this core group of people who were in the board of directors, and we never really reached out and got our membership involved. So, I have been part of a nonprofit in my school district. My wife is a part of a Rotary, a part of a Main Street Association, and you can see, okay, so you have a president for a year or two, then a new one gets elected, and you kind of filter keep on moving them through. We never did that, and we're paying the price for it. Because now we're losing officers and there's no one there to replace them. We're going to lose our 501c3 status. Yes, we are, Pete.
Yep.
We have no officers. We haven't had a meeting in 2 years. We're going to lose it.
The president moved to another state. We will have,
And he resigned in writing.
Yeah, we will have new officers shortly as soon as we get to our meeting.
Okay, what I would like you to do, if you want to help save Florida Citizens for Science, because here's the next thing. These guys right here, I mentioned them a minute ago, Florida Citizens Alliance. They had the governor's ear. The governor appointed 2 members of this organization to his governor education transition team. That's a big deal. They have the ears of so many lawmakers. That's why they've been successful for the past 3 or 4 years in getting bills passed. We're on the decline. These guys are winning. We don't have much influence anymore. If you would like to help, talk to me, talk to Pete. Pete and I have our differences, but we both would love to see Florida Citizens for Science stay alive, be successful, be awesome. But we can't do it without people joining and helping us out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for inviting me here.
And I Brandon for his talk today. I hope it didn't depress you too much. We will have him back. And if you have any questions right now, anybody? No. Make them quick because we got Kate.
I don't want to really ask a question. I just wanted to say thank you because we need people like you to educate us on things that are going on. So even if it's bad news, we need to hear it. No, seriously, don't you think? I think I was enlightened and I really appreciate all your efforts. Really, it makes a difference.
Just a quick comment. There is a partial solution to this, and sort of the elephant in the room. The Republican Party has been gradually taken over since the 70s by fundamentalist Christians. They're now 35% of the Republican Party is evangelicals. So unless we have more pointing out what's happened to deteriorate the Republican Party and throw the Republicans out of office, we're going to be beating our heads against a wall here because they're going to try to turn things into a theocracy gradually. And unless we actually point out to the public what's happened to the Republican Party and try to get them out of office, it's going to be the same. You'll have worse things to say next year.
Any comments on that, or on Kim Daniels, who is actually a Democrat?
We do. Florida Citizens for Science as a 501c3, we cannot, promote, candidates for office and stuff like that. So we try to be as apolitical as possible. But yeah, what you said.
I have a response on this and what you talked about before. When you say how much of you're losing power, how much of that is because of the dissipation of your core group into other things? How many people are now off in every resist movement there is? Isn't there energy going there? Because from just the brief little bit I've heard here, this is not so much a pro-science as it is anti-Republican, anti-Christian, anti-everything. So's a bunch of other people. And when you've decided science in Florida schools is not a big enough target, we're going to fix the world, you are losing, you're making sure every single Republican who shows up and might want to help, you just said, you're not welcome here, you're an evil evangelist. And anyone here says, oh, you are not 100% against Donald Trump, you're out of here. And you're making it very clear, this is not about education, this is about politics. How much of that do you think is causing a dissipation of your power?
The purpose of Florida Citizens for Science is to promote and defend the sound quality science education in the state of Florida. I've been often asked, why isn't Florida Citizens for Science more proactive? Why don't you get out and do things? And the deal is, well, no, we're defending science education against the attacks on science education. The bills I showed you are attacks on science education. The book I wrote is all attacks on science education. We stood up to defend Florida state science standards. I can't help it that it's political. I can't help that, but it's not something that's... I'm talking to a friendly audience right now.
The biggest problem is Common Core, not the evangelists. What are you doing against Common Core? That's the real problem. The evangelists are nothing compared to Common Core, which is bringing all the children down to the bottom so that they can bring the bottom 1/8 up.
Do you have a question?
So I live by something that was taught to me over my career in the sheriff's office and Marine Corps. It's called stay in your lane. I'm focused on science education. I'm a science teacher. That is my focus. I'm not going to stray off in Common Core. I had to mention Common Core because it's overshadowing what I think is a major problem with science standards. But my focus is on science and science education, period.
Thank you for coming today. I work with a number of former teachers, most of whom left teaching after 2 in some cases 1 year. You mentioned potential legislative push to get new teachers. Is there any particular legislative approaches about retaining teachers or keeping people in the classroom?
Maybe I misspoke, but no, there is no real effort to retain teachers. Matter of fact, they lowered the signing bonus from $7,000 to $4,000. I don't see anything they're doing to try to help recruit and retain science teachers. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I don't see any effort.
I just wanted to mention, you know, we heard someone thank you for all your work, and we got a big round of applause, and we heard someone speak against Republicans and got a smattering of applause. I would say, I've been on your website, I've been on your mailing list for several years now. Everything is about science education. I know there are Republican members of Florida Citizens for Science. I think there are probably some Republicans here, and frankly, I don't care. We're all here for the same reason. It has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions?
Pete, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Florida Citizens for Science, we are not partisan, and as mentioned, we are not working for or against Common Core, which is not in science. A lot of people have lots of negative views on Common Core, and I think it's closely associated with the heavy standardized testing, which actually came in before Common Core and is not part of Common Core. But we should remember that a considerable, an increasing number of Republicans are in fact supportive of regular science. You know, when it comes to you know, those who want to support creationism to be taught in a science class, and include, you know, there's some Democrats and more often Republicans, but that is not our fault. You know, science is a certain way, and that's that.
I'm ready for cake, are you? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Brandon, everyone.